Madelaine Petsch reveals the creative change she fought for in the Strangers trilogy. Madelaine Petsch's role in the Strangers trilogy goes beyond her on-screen presence. Ahead of the release of The Strangers Chapter 3, Petsch has revealed the creative alteration she fought for in the Strangers trilogy and how it shaped her character. Petsch portrays Maya across all three movies in the trilogy, the only person who's fought and survived against the Strangers' onslaught of home invasions. She'll lead the cast of The Strangers Chapter 3 as well. In an interview with Screen Rant's Ash Crossan, however, Petsch also revealed her important behind-the-scenes contributions to the Strangers trilogy. She explained how she worked hand-in-hand with producer Courtney Solomon to rewrite parts of the scripts to flesh out Maya's character. Her involvement is what led to her becoming a producer for the horror trilogy as well. Madelaine Petsch, I think mostly it came down to the writing. When I first got the scripts, I could see the bones, but I felt like we could really dive deeper into this character. I spent a lot of time in pre-production, which is ultimately why I became a producer, because I wanted to rewrite it with Courtney. We spent weeks rewriting the script, honestly rewriting every night for the next day. Thankfully, I'm kind of the only person in these movies, so it really only affected me. I hate giving actors new lines the night before, so it was my fault and only on me. That was probably the biggest creative note during shooting. Then in the editing process, I was in the room most days with Courtney and I learned a lot about separating myself from the person I'm seeing on screen. At first, it was really hard not to be hypercritical of everything I did. Once I got past that, I was able to really learn how to edit and enhance a film and find meaningful moments. Editing is its own language entirely, so learning that was huge for me. She explained how prior to rewrites she felt as though Maya didn't have characteristics beyond the typical horror protagonist that would make her stand out among survivors in other series. But for the Strangers movie trilogy, she used her knowledge as a fan of horror to bolster Maya, deepening her character and the realism of her decisions in various scenarios. Madelaine Petsch, honestly, it was the depth of Maya. It's really easy to write a horror film where characters don't have a lot of real characteristics because people think audiences are just there for the violence or to chase the protagonist versus antagonist dynamic. But what horror audiences really want are dynamic characters. They want to be on the journey with them. I'm a horror fan, so I feel like I have a good sense of what audiences are looking for. It really came down to grounding Maya more, making her choices feel real. I wanted her to make the most sophisticated choices possible, the kind of choices someone who's never been in a horror movie would realistically make. That depth was the biggest change. Maya's story is set to conclude in the upcoming The Strangers Chapter 3, which will see her continuing her fight for survival after killing Pinup Girl in the previous movie. The film will also see the return of Gabriel Basso as Gregory and Richard Brake as Sheriff Rotter. As the final film unfolds, so too will Maya's ultimate destiny with the Strangers be decided. The Strangers Chapter 2 ends by hinting that Maya could be joining the Strangers at some point in the final installment, donning Pinup Girl's mask. This harkens back to Petsch's comments about making her stand out as a horror protagonist. So far, she has been unique because of her survival against the group's attacks alongside killing one of their core members. But with the trailer for The Strangers Chapter 3 hinting at her possibly joining them, her character becomes a much more dynamic protagonist. So far, she has harbored a hatred for them that's continued to grow, with the original Pinup Girl's death only making her more of a mark. Yet that could change, depending on the direction of the final film. Without Petsch's influence on the script, perhaps Maya wouldn't be as dynamic a main character as she wound up being. But collaborating with the film's writers and producers may have strengthened the Strangers trilogy. Even if the movies aren't as beloved as the original, their unique use of the characters alongside a notable protagonist make them stand out. Screen Rant, you're shaping IP now as a producer. Is there another world or property quietly sitting in the back of your mind that you'd love to helm Madelaine Petsch? Yes. Screen Rant, any hints? Madelaine Petsch, it's a 70s horror film. Screen Rant. Okay, something we'd probably know. Madelaine Petsch, yeah, I think so. Someone showed it to me fairly recently and I was like, holy, this is so cool. How has no one ever touched this? So that's my 2027 mission. Screen Rant, that's the 2027 in. Madelaine Petsch, yeah, the 2027 in is announcing that movie. Screen Rant, I was thinking about you because there was an interview the other day where Kristen Stewart said she wants to go back to Twilight and direct it this time. Madelaine Petsch, I saw that Screen Rant, and I wondered if you'd ever want to get behind the camera if Riverdale ever circled back. Madelaine Petsch, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think he'll end up directing at some point. It's something I'm really fascinated by, but I'm not ready for it yet. I love Riverdale, and I love Cheryl, so maybe. Screen Rant, you were with Cheryl for 7 seasons, and you've been with Maya for years as well. How does a character like that stick with you over time? Madelaine Petsch. It's interesting because my first real experience in this industry was a character that sticks with you. Cheryl flipped a switch for me, so that's what I'm most familiar with. It's actually harder for me to do one-off films where I fall in love with a character and then never see or feel her again. Every character has pieces of me woven into them, and then they become part of who I am too. I learn lessons about myself and about who I want to be by being other people. The Strangers Chapter 3 is now in theaters.